Well, I thought I wanted constitutionalism, but I'm told by The Daily Show that I want F.A.F.O. This is Scott Ott with Bill Whittle and Stephen Green, and this episode of Right Angles brought to you by the members at BillWhittle.com. Gentlemen, I'm not going to say what F.A.F.O. stands for, but The Daily Show, after I had actually prepared to do this episode on this topic, I saw a little clip from The Daily Show where they were joking that Democrats' new strategy in regarding the nominees that President Trump has, or President-elect Trump has put up for his next administration, that they were all going to vote in favor of them, that they weren't going to oppose any of them on the legal strategy of F.A.F.O, which basically means mess around and find out. So they were basically saying, to great laughter from the audience, let the president have his nominees because this is going to be a clown show, non-pareil, and that this was the best possible thing that the Democrats can do. It's funny, Steve Green, because what I had been planning to say during this episode, because I've seen all this coverage of, Matt Gaetz and allegations that have been made against him. Tulsi Gabbard, I read an article about her where they were talking about all the ways that she opposed President Trump's agenda for foreign policy in his first administration. Kristi Noem, who will forever be known as the woman who shot her dog. Pete Hegseth, the Fox News correspondent nominated for SecDef, who has a non-disclosure agreement with regarding a sexual encounter with a woman. A couple of guys who've been nominated for cabinet positions who are corporate fat cats, and of course we know that's evil right there. And not to mention Elon Musk and all his foibles. And Steve, here's my crazy theory. Donald Trump got elected as president of the United States based on what he told the people of the United States. And Steve, my theory is he should be allowed to do what he said he was going to do within the constraints of the law, obviously.
Yes.
But he should be allowed his choices for who's going to serve in his administration, as long as it doesn't violate any kind of law. And if I'm a Democrat, Steve, I've got to be thinking not FAFO. I've got to be thinking, if we don't let him have his team, then who are we to complain if things don't go well? Because we prevented him from having his team. Steve, am I crazy?
I'm not sure that's the read I got on it. What I got from it, at least from what you described on The Daily Show, is that they expect to see 12 Matt Gaetzes climb out of the clown car in the center ring of the circus here. And so what they want is the big comical fail. They want to see Trump trip over all the clown shoes. And maybe that'll happen. I don't think so. Because there's a certain mad genius to Trump's cabinet picks and other picks this time around that we did not see in his first term, or at least not on his first go-around. Positions like Secretary of State that he finally got right on the second try. I think he got it right on the first try here with Marco Rubio. But there's I can't remember who said this, somebody much smarter than I am, I'm sure, said that things start to make sense if you imagine that bureaucracies are run by a cabal of its enemies. And oh yeah, that does explain quite a bit. Well, what Trump is doing is kind of doing that on purpose. All of his picks so far have been people who have serious beefs with the cabinet agencies that they are supposed to be running. And this is genius. This is absolutely genius. Matt Gaetz is not my cup of tea. He rubs me the wrong way. That's fine, whatever. But I think putting him in charge of the Department of Justice is great because Congress and DOJ have been trying to murder this guy through the law and through investigations with these trumped-up charges. The FBI goes after people who are innocent. They haven't been able to pin anything on Matt Gaetz. This is how you know these charges are BS. Marco Rubio, in just all of these choices, all of them have a beef. Robert F. Kennedy Jr. is a freaking madman. He's insane. He's wrong on so many things. But the things he's right on are exactly some of the things that he needs to be doing in his new position. So I can't wait to see how this plays out, Scott, because it's not going to be all of these nominees getting out of the clown car with their red noses and their giant shoes on. What we're going to see, with any luck, if these appointments of Trump's do what they're expected to do, we're going to see rats fleeing ships, and not ships that hit an iceberg, but ships that are being flooded on purpose, because that's the only way to restore where they're supposed to be. Because when a ship gets torpedoed on the left side and the water's coming in, you flood the compartments on the right side to restore balance, and the ship is lower in the water, and that's what we're going to call federal spending. You get that ship lower in the water, and you do it by righting the ship, by flooding those compartments and driving the rats out.
Bill Whittle, it seems to me that the Democrats are most alarmed about all of this, largely because they have created a strong administrative state. They have created a strong bureaucracy. And so now they're like, oh, you can't put these crazy people in charge of these powerful agencies. Meanwhile, most Republicans are saying we shouldn't have these powerful agencies. Well, how have these things become so powerful? And so their fear is, oh my goodness, we created this super weapon, and now you're going to put Matt Gaetz in the saddle of this super weapon. And if Republicans are true to form, Bill, wouldn't you think that they would go in there and actually try to reduce the power of those agencies, and that Democrats essentially have nothing to fear because we don't want to weaponize the agencies against them. We want to diffuse the agencies.
They have everything to fear. The Democrats are the party of the big state. The big state is the immortal bureaucracy, and the people that Donald Trump has appointed are there to destroy the immortal bureaucracy. I did a hot mic on this called The Outside Inside, where basically you should stop thinking about politics as Republicans versus Democrats and start thinking about it as outsiders versus insiders, the people who have created this machine to tell us what to do, to tell us to follow the science and listen to the guys in the white lab coats and don't worry about inflation and the economy. The economy is just humming along, and all the experts who've been proven to be wrong. I love Steve's I think it was Steve who said, they think it's just going to be a clown car with, they're just going to park under the spotlight and these 12 guys dressed like Matt Gaetz with funny shoes and big red noses are going to jump out. But I think what actually is going to happen is that car is going to stop and some guy in a gladiator outfit's going to step out and he's going to, scream, cry havoc and let slip the dogs of war. And that is not the response that they are looking for. So I'm kind of inclined to say I don't think it's going to be FAFO. I think it's going to be YOLO. I think it's going to be you only live once, man. Donald Trump has taken the opportunity to show that he is serious about appointing not just outsiders to these positions. Steve got it exactly right. I also did a hot mic on the comparison between Tulsi Gabbard and Avril Gaines. I'm doing a series of head-to-head comparisons between the incoming appointees and the people they're replacing. And so the left will say Tulsi Gabbard, she's not qualified. All she ever was a medic in Iraq and served with distinction in the U.S. military. How can she possibly be in charge of an intelligence agency when she's not an attorney like Avril Haines is, who lectures at Columbia University? And the point I made in that first of those head-to-head competitions is, if you want somebody to continue to have a bureaucracy, then Avril Haines is exactly who you want, an inside attorney who looks at things like an attorney. Avril Haines was in charge, was deputy director of the CIA when a number of CIA agents hacked into Senate computers regarding a Senate report on the CIA using torture. And she refused to discipline these rogue CIA agents who hacked into the computers of the United States Senate, who they work for, and the Senate works for us. She refused to discipline these people. She had a 6,700-page report handed to her about CIA using torture techniques, and she was in charge of redacting sensitive elements of those reports. And of that 6,700-page report, 525 pages were released. So if you want somebody, using her as an example, to maintain a rogue set of intelligence agencies that are weaponized against the United States government, then yes, Avril Haines is perfectly qualified for that job. If, on the other hand, you want somebody who realizes that a weaponized government is the greatest threat to the American people, a far greater threat than any intelligence lapse that might help China or Russia or Iran or whatever. The fact that your own government is weaponized against you, if you recognize that to be the genuine threat, then somebody like Tulsi Gabbard, who has many faults from a MAGA point of view, is an unquestioned patriot who has worn the uniform with pride and who cares about the American people and has shown through her legislation to try to decriminalize both Julian Assange and Edward Snowden, somebody who says, look, I might not like people who are whistleblowers and oath breakers and release top secret documents, but if the documents they're releasing are showing the American people how their government is spying against them, that to me is telling me she's on the side of the people. And this is the outside versus the insiders. Populist they have tried to use the word populist as a derogatory term. For me, it's somebody who places the people of the United States above the government of the United States. And this is who Donald Trump has unleashed. This time, he's not going to drain the swamp. This time, he's going to go burn it down with flamethrowers. And I wish it wasn't necessary, but certainly the events of Trump's first term with the whole Russian collusion thing and everything we've seen in the last 4 years tells me no. It's flame on time.
Well, my central position on any president's appointments is it doesn't matter whether I like them or not. It's not my cabinet. It's the cabinet of the elected president of the United States. So just because I don't particularly care for Matt Gaetz, who looks like a hydrocephalic snidely whiplash, I don't think that it matters what I think of that. He hasn't been convicted of anything. I mean, who better to be attorney general in a sense than somebody who has been repeatedly accused and never convicted, or as he would say, exonerated. I'm not sure it goes that far, but he hasn't been tried or convicted of anything. He's out of the House of Representatives now, as he withdrew himself. They say because he didn't want the report released that the committee had assembled on his behavior. But if he's committed some criminal act, charge him, try him, convict him if you can, and move on. If he doesn't pass muster with the Senate, I don't care about that either. The president will choose somebody else, and you might not like him as well as you like Matt Gaetz. And so the point of it is
be careful. Yeah.
That the president, I think, is entitled to his team. And the advice and consent of the Senate was just really meant by the framers and founders to keep out the worst possible elements of society. Now, some people who are, looking down their nose at all these nominees may think that these are the worst elements of society. And that's what you may hear inside the Beltway. Outside the Beltway, you're hearing applause, honestly, from the people who voted for Donald Trump, who are saying it's about time that somebody got appointed to these positions who was not just has been on the bureaucratic track for his entire life. It's about time that you appointed some people who, once they serve their term in this position, will want to get the heck out of Dodge as fast as they can and will not desire to be able to stay in those roles. It's about time you chose somebody whose opinion on everything you didn't already know. And honestly, even for people who, I don't know what to think about Robert F. Kennedy Jr., but it's a giant bureaucracy, and he doesn't have power to decide things that change your life. He has to go through the normal procedures, the constitutional processes, and all that kind of stuff. So, unlike the Democrats' dream of an administrative state that controls every aspect of our lives, these people aren't going to have that kind of latitude in a Trump administration to do crazy stuff that messes up your life. They may do crazy stuff that messes up the life of the bureaucracy. But I think we can endure that for 4 years. And maybe we'll start to like it. For Bill Whittle and Stephen Green, I'm Scott Ott. Thanks to the members at BillWhittle.com for making Right Angle possible.